Welcome to this exploration of how to be more confident. And let's start with a simple fact. If you're looking for something, you're much more likely to find it if you know where to look. And that reminds me of a case where I was running a course for one of the big banks a few years ago. And in the group of participants, the most senior person had been with the bank for over 30 years. And he had worked in many different roles, in many different departments, and in fact in many different countries. And he had a whole string of achievements to his name. But in discussion, he said to me that he was having difficulty with his current role. And his diagnosis was that he wanted more confidence. And sometimes when you hear confidence talked about in that sort of way, it makes confidence sound like a thing, a commodity, something out there that you have to go and get more of. But you see, confidence isn't like a bag of potatoes where you can go and get more potatoes. In fact, you can run out of potatoes. You can have too few potatoes. So looking at confidence in that way isn't really very helpful. It's a bit of a red herring, as we shall see. The other way that confidence is quite commonly talked about is if it's a sort of built-in personal characteristic. You know, some people have it, some people don't. Almost as if it's somehow in your genes and you're born with it. And in that scenario, confidence looks like a question of luck. You know, you're either lucky and you have confidence or you're not, which again, as we'll see, isn't actually the case. So we can dismiss both of those views as places not to look. But a clue where to look comes from the fact that you're watching this video. You're drawn to the idea of having more confidence because, and I would strongly suspect this, that you have already an experience of what confidence feels like. In other words, in your life, in your job, in whatever scenario that you are in, you notice that there's a variation in your feelings of confidence. And you know that those feelings can change day to day, even sometimes minute to minute. So in a way we can say that because you know something of what confidence feels like, you already have an ability to feel confident. And what we can do is actually look at how we can maximize that, experience that more frequently and more for a longer duration. So the other thing that is worth considering is that, and this is a question to you really, can you feel not confident if you're not thinking about yourself? I mean, I noticed this quite early on in my career, where if I was working with a group of people and my thoughts turned onto myself, I became self-conscious, perhaps, you know, wondering, how am I doing here, or something like that, then my confidence levels wavered. But you can't really feel not confident if you're not thinking about yourself. And that's another clue as to what's really going on. So, how does all this fit together then? Well, let's just backtrack a bit and go back to some fairly basic principles here. The first thing we can say about all of us, you and me and every other human being, is that we are constantly thinking. There's always thoughts coming and going from our mind. So we don't choose these thoughts. They just arrive, and then if we just leave them alone, they go and they're replaced by others. It's a bit like a river, a flow of thoughts that is going from upstream to downstream in a natural way. And unless we dam the river, that will continue. So what typically happens then when we feel unconfident, or I'm going to use the word insecure? That's a bit more of an elegant word. What happens is that somewhere along the line, an insecure thought occurs to us. We haven't chosen it, it's just arrived. And from there on, there's a couple of different paths that we can go down. So let's take the first path. What happens is that thought, the insecure thought, creates a feeling of insecurity. Because that's what thoughts do. They always create a feeling. And there's more on this if you want to watch the video I've made recently, Where Do Your Feelings Come From? So there's a cause and effect here. An insecure thought creates an insecure feeling. Now, we can get quite alarmed by that feeling because we think there's something wrong. We take it seriously, and most importantly, we believe the thought is true. So that insecure thought, which could be a self-critical thought, or it could be a self-doubtful thought, or possibly we've made a comparison, an unfavourable comparison with somebody else, and we're feeling the consequences of that insecure thought. So we think there's something wrong. So from there, it sort of makes sense. We try and fix it. So what we do is we give those insecure thoughts more attention. We think about them more. And any thoughts that we give attention to will grow, and they will also stick around for longer. And you may even find that this is a habit you have, I recognise it as a habit that I had, that if you think there's something wrong, you keep thinking about it and looking at it from all different angles and trying to work out how you solve things, and it just exacerbates those insecure feelings. And from that, we're, as I said, going to prolong the feeling. So we can see from that is a way of keeping insecure feelings around often and for extended periods of time. So in a way, what we could say is that by trying to do more, in other words, we've been trying to fix something, we've actually made it worse. Now, for convenience, I'm going to call that path the path of addition, because we've tried to add to what originally occurred to us, which was the original insecure thought. But what about the other side? What about the other path we could consider here? You may already guess we're going to call this the path of subtraction. So we've got addition and subtraction, just convenient labels to make the distinction. So what else could happen, and what alternative do we have? So let's go back to the beginning. You have an insecure thought, and the difference is you know what's happening. You understand that the feeling you're getting of insecurity is coming from that insecure thought. So you know what's going on. And whenever we know what's going on, it doesn't alarm us in the same way it might do. So we don't take that thought particularly seriously. We certainly don't automatically believe it's true. And therefore, there is nothing to fix. We can register the feeling. We feel insecure, but we don't dwell on it. We don't give it lots of attention. And as we said earlier, the river of thought means that if we don't dam the river, then fresh thinking comes along. The old thinking goes downstream and new thinking replaces it. And when new thinking comes along, then our feelings change. So we're not stuck in that feeling of insecurity. It's more fleeting. It's transitory. So it's not something that's going to impair our performance or functioning in the world to the same extent as the first path, the path of addition. So in summary then, we can say that you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker. You are the space of awareness where the thoughts come and go. And just because a thought occurs to you doesn't mean to say it's true. It doesn't mean to say you've got to treat it seriously. It's a bit like, if you get a caller at your home caller at the door, you can answer the door, but you don't have to invite everybody in for a couple of hours of tea and biscuits. I mean, it's up to you how much time you spend with a caller. Just the same, it's up to you how much attention you give particular thinking. And perhaps best of all is the understanding that insecure thinking, which creates the insecure feeling, will pass all by itself if you leave it alone. It's the river again. If you don't dam the river, then the old thinking will flow downstream, and new thinking will replace it. But hey, don't just believe me here. Test it out for yourself, and look to see it working like that in your own life. And then the understanding is yours. You go beyond a conceptual understanding to it being embodied and making a real difference to you in a daily sense. So I'll leave that with you. And again, if you've got any comments or questions, please let me know. Thank you for watching.